The lid sides shut, cutting off the last sliver of the world above. Then comes the sound of heavy screws driving into the wood, followed by the heavy, muffled thud of dirt striking the roof. Down there, in the pitch black, is a 20-year-old woman. She is sealed inside a space no bigger than a coffin, buried alive beneath the freezing Georgia soil, completely alone. The people who put her there had engineered what they thought was the perfect crime, but their meticulously calculated plan would eventually be torn apart by two things: a single random moment of human panic above ground, and the sheer psychological endurance of the woman trapped below. Look at this snapshot of an Atlanta street in the 1960s. By mid-December of 1968, the city was caught in a massive flu outbreak. 20-year-old college student Barbara Mackle had caught the virus during midterm week, so her mother Jane drove up to help her rest in a local motel room until she was well enough to travel back home. Then, at 4 in the morning, there was a knock. A man outside claimed to be a detective reporting a car wreck. When Jane opened the door, two figures in ski masks forced their way in. One carried a shotgun. Within seconds, they shoved Jane face down on the bed, bound her with blind cords, and chloroformed her. They dragged Barbara into the freezing night, still in her nightgown. Her abductors had targeted her specifically because her father, Robert Mackle, was a successful Florida land developer, a man they knew was capable of paying a massive ransom. They drove Barbara roughly 30 miles northeast into an isolated, freezing stretch of the Gwinnett County woods. The kidnappers weren't panicking or looking for a place to hide. They were heading to a spot they had already prepared. This diagram shows what the FBI would later call the capsule. It was a 240-pound, fiberglass reinforced box engineered to keep a human alive underground for 7 days. Measuring just 6 feet long and 2 feet wide, it was equipped with 2 air pipes running to the surface, a battery-powered lamp, a chemical toilet, and rations of food and water. Before forcing her inside, they made Barbara take a Polaroid photograph to use as proof of life, even ordering her to smile. Then they explained the box's mechanics to her like a piece of equipment, completely omitting one crucial detail. The drinking water they provided had been laced with a mild sedative to keep her docile. The kidnappers had engineered a cold, calculated life support system. They intended to keep Barbara breathing just long enough to extract a fortune from the Mackle family. The captors demanded a staggering sum. They wanted $500,000 from the Mackle family, equivalent to millions today, in exchange for Barbara's coordinates. Their planning was almost obsessive. Weeks before the kidnapping even occurred, they had typed up a 4.5-page ransom letter, sealed it inside a glass tube, and buried it beneath a rock in the Mackle family's own garden in Florida. After the family received the horrifying news, Robert Mackle agreed to pay. But during the very first attempt to drop the money at the designated spot, 2 local police officers happened to drive by on an entirely unrelated patrol. The sight of the cruiser spooked the kidnappers instantly. They sprinted away on foot, abandoning their getaway vehicle at the scene. That abandoned Volvo station wagon gave the FBI everything they needed. Inside the car, agents found a camera loaded with practice photos and registration documents tied to a man named George Deacon. The criminals had calculated Barbara's exact caloric needs to survive a week buried in dirt, but their entire operation unraveled the moment a police cruiser took a routine turn down the wrong street. George Deacon was an alias. His real name was Gary Christ, a 23-year-old escaped convict who had been hiding out while working at a marine science institute in Miami. His accomplice was a 26-year-old graduate student in marine biology named Ruth Eisenman Shear, who had helped him orchestrate the abduction from start to finish. Christ had weaponized his job at the institute. Using a private university trailer that only he had access to, he spent weeks researching Barbara, building the capsule, and even having Ruth lock herself inside it for hours to test the ventilation. Down in the ground, Barbara had no idea who these people were. Before they screwed the lid shut, they had promised they would return every few hours to check her vital signs. But that was a lie. They had driven straight back to Miami, leaving her entirely isolated. Realizing no one was coming back, Barbara forced herself to focus on the one thing she could control, her own mind. To stave off panic, she sang every church hymn she could remember and repeatedly visualized what Christmas morning would look like in her living room. The case had split into 2 parallel realities: Above ground, the FBI was desperately trying to track down a pair of fugitives. Below the soil, a young woman's survival depended entirely on her refusal to let the darkness break her. On December 20th, a second ransom drop finally went through without a hitch. Shortly after, Christ called an FBI operator and gave them directions to the burial site, but his instructions were incredibly vague. More than 100 agents descended on the Lawrenceville area. With the afternoon sun dropping quickly behind the trees, they began a desperate, frantic sweep of the woods, knowing that if they lost the daylight, they might walk right over the grave. In their massive rush to get out the door and save her, the first wave of agents arrived at the search site completely empty-handed. Not a single person had remembered to bring a shovel. Some agents began digging with their bare hands, while others shouted her name into the trees. Finally, just around 4 p.m., one investigator noticed a tiny detail: a patch of freshly turned red Georgia clay, lightly concealed under some brush. The frantic search zeroed in on that exact spot. When they finally clawed their way down to the fiberglass roof and pried the heavy screws loose, they found Barbara Mackle inside. She was severely dehydrated and too weak to stand, but completely lucid. Against all conventional logic, she had survived 83 hours, trapped in a sealed box underneath 1.5 feet of earth. The people who put her there didn't stay free for long. Christ was caught off the coast of Florida in a speedboat purchased with the ransom cash. Roos evaded capture for several months before a routine hospital background check in Oklahoma matched her fingerprints. What happened to Gary Christ in the justice system defies belief. Originally sentenced to life in prison, he was paroled after serving just 10 years. He then received a pardon, went to medical school, and actually became a practicing doctor in Indiana. His reinvention didn't last. By 2003, his medical license was revoked. A few years later, authorities arrested him again, this time off the coast of Alabama, piloting a sailboat loaded with $1 million worth of illegal narcotics. Barbara Mackle's path went in the exact opposite direction. She married, raised a family, and lived a quiet, peaceful life in the Atlanta area, deliberately staying out of the public eye. Gary Christ had tried to reduce human life to an equation, betting that his cold, calculated mechanics could overpower a desperate family. But his flawless machine was dismantled by his own inability to handle a passing police car, and entirely outmatched by a young woman who simply refused to die in the dark.